Many businesses believe they are nurturing leads, when in reality they are only repeating contact. A message is sent, then another. Then another follow-up appears days later, often with the same underlying intent. Checking in, following up, touching base, seeing if there are any updates. From the business side, this can feel disciplined. The lead has not been forgotten. The pipeline still appears active. The relationship still seems visible. So it becomes easy to assume that nurturing is happening. But repetition is not the same as nurturing. Repeated contact does not automatically create more trust, more readiness, or more movement. If the contact does not add relevance, it usually adds very little value. This is where many businesses misread their own follow-up quality. They think the problem is frequency, so they increase visibility. But visibility without progression rarely strengthens a relationship. It often just makes the business more present, without making the lead more prepared. Real nurturing works differently. It does not ask only, "Have we stayed in touch?" It asks, "Has each interaction made the opportunity easier to understand, easier to trust, or easier to move forward later?" That is a much higher standard, because a lead that is not ready now does not always need another reminder. Very often, the lead needs clearer relevance, something that helps them think, something that sharpens the problem, something that improves timing awareness, something that keeps the business credible without creating pressure. When that is missing, follow-up becomes repetitive. And repetitive follow-up creates a very specific kind of friction. It does not always feel aggressive. It often feels empty. The lead sees contact, but not progress. Presence, but not usefulness. Persistence, but not added value. That weakens momentum slowly. The relationship may remain open, but the quality of the interaction drops. Now the business is still visible, yet less meaningful. That is dangerous, because it creates the appearance of nurturing without the actual effect of it. A pipeline can remain busy while becoming less productive. Messages continue. Conversations remain technically alive. Touchpoints accumulate. But none of that guarantees that the lead is becoming more ready, more informed, or more likely to act. This is why nurturing should never be confused with staying present at any cost. Presence is only useful when it carries relevance. Without relevance, contact becomes noise. And noise is expensive, not because every message fails, but because it slowly reduces the quality of the business's presence. The lead begins to associate follow-up with interruption instead of usefulness. Once that happens, future contact becomes harder to land well. This is the real problem. Businesses often think nurturing fails because leads are unresponsive. In many cases, nurturing fails because nothing meaningful was actually being nurtured. The business was maintaining contact, but not increasing value. And if value is not increasing, the relationship is not getting stronger. It is only getting longer. That distinction matters because a long opportunity is not necessarily a healthy opportunity. If time passes without greater clarity, greater trust, or greater readiness, then contact is being repeated without enough strategic purpose. That is not nurturing. It is motion without development. And when businesses rely on that pattern, they start confusing activity with relationship building. But real nurturing is not repetition. It is sustained relevance over time. And without that relevance, even consistent follow-up can quietly weaken the very opportunities it was meant to protect. A useful nurturing process does not try to force readiness. It tries to preserve and deepen relevance until readiness becomes real. That changes the role of follow-up completely. The goal is no longer to ask for movement again and again. The goal becomes to support the conditions that make future movement more likely. This is why real nurturing has to add something. It can add clarity. It can add perspective. It can add timing awareness. It can reinforce the seriousness of a problem. It can make the next decision feel easier because the lead understands more clearly what is at stake. Without that added value, contact does not accumulate well. It only repeats visibility. And repeated visibility is rarely enough to strengthen intent. A lead who is not ready does not always need another reminder that the business still exists. Very often, the lead needs a reason to care again in a more informed way. That reason does not need to be dramatic. It needs to be relevant. Relevant to the stage, relevant to the timing, relevant to the problem the lead is trying to solve, relevant to the type of uncertainty that is still slowing the decision. This is where nurturing becomes operationally powerful. It creates continuity without creating pressure. It keeps the relationship alive without pretending a decision must happen now. It also protects the pipeline from a very common distortion. When businesses do not nurture well, they often end up with two bad options. Either they keep repeating contact until the lead disengages, or they stop showing up entirely and allow the opportunity to disappear from memory. Neither approach is strong. One creates fatigue. The other creates decay. Real nurturing sits between the two. It does not chase. It does not vanish. It stays useful. That usefulness is what makes future conversion possible. Because when the lead is finally ready, the business is not being remembered as the one that kept asking. It is being remembered as the one that stayed relevant. That distinction is powerful. It changes how the business is perceived, not as persistent, but as credible. Not as noisy, but as helpful. Not as reactive, but as structurally present in the right way. This is also why nurturing should never be treated as filler between sales attempts. It is not empty spacing. It is a strategic layer that protects future revenue by improving the quality of the relationship over time. If that quality is not improving, then time is not helping. The opportunity may still be open, but openness alone does not create value. Value grows when the lead becomes more informed, more certain, more aware of timing, or more able to move when conditions align. That is what nurturing should support. And once that standard is understood, the pipeline becomes easier to manage. The business stops measuring success by how often it reached out. It starts measuring success by whether each interaction increased relevance, protected trust, or made future movement more realistic. That is the real difference between nurturing and repetition. Repetition keeps contact alive. Nurturing makes contact matter. And when businesses finally separate those two ideas, follow-up becomes lighter, trust becomes stronger, and long-cycle opportunities stop feeling like dead space inside the pipeline. They become what they should have been all along. Not immediate wins, but future decisions being handled with enough relevance to stay alive in the right way.